uncertainty and despite fear, despite worries or concerns. That's what we're talking about today. If you are brand new to me, my name is Susan McVeigh, and I am a married mama of two and a business sales and wealth strategist. And here on this channel, we talk about all things business and entrepreneurship, which includes sales and money with faith and family mixed in because hashtag real life. So if you happen to be on here live or on the replay, please feel free to say hello and let me know if you have ever gone through something that when you were facing it, and maybe that's where you are right now, and that's how you stumbled upon this video, that you're going to require to move, like in order for you to get to the other side, you're going to need to hold on to faith. Because when you look at the thing that you are literally staring right here, it doesn't appear like it is possible for you to do what you need to do or to get what you want to get. So I'm going to be sharing a story, maybe a couple stories as we go through this, but I want you to know that the reason why I'm popping on here today and talking about this topic is because, Merry Christmas, by the way, because it's where I'm in the world here today is December 25th. So we're celebrating Christmas. Now, I know that sometimes as we round up the end of the year, that as we reflect back on areas and we think about the things that we still want to do, that there may be some deep reflection about woulda, coulda, shouldas, right? Like the things that I wish I could have done, I should have done, I still have yet to do, and maybe the thing just feels. It's really windy here, so my connection might be a little bit spotty, okay? And I apologize for that because I may or may not be able to tell. So I'm sorry. We're going through a windstorm. So if you have ever been in a situation where you almost needed to take a leap of faith, but even beyond that, like you're just moving blind, that's what I want to talk about today, because I think sometimes when you look at people that have what you want to have and have done what you want to do, that it's very easy to look at them and instantly come to a point of, well, it must be easy for them, right? It must be, it must be nice. And I want to share just my perspective, which you can agree or disagree with. Hello, that French guy. Merry Christmas to you too. But the fact of the matter is that I believe that we are all human beings we are not God. We are not, greater than or worse than anybody else. We just might have different experiences and different perspectives that either propel us forward or push us back. And so today I want to have a conversation around faith and really dive into this a little bit more because, number one, of these videos where people are asking around different things and different questions, and the undertone that really comes down to it is, I'm afraid to do the thing that I actually really want to do. And I'm not sure if it is compelling enough or if I'm good enough to do the thing that I actually want to do. And there is a lot of fear wrapped in that question or questions, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And the reality is that life is never 100% all the time, right? That when we take steps forward, even for somebody who looks like they know what they're doing, they might know what they're doing to a certain point because they've done those things before. But after a certain point, we're all kind of just doing the best that we can. And some of us are doing that both, and yet they're still gonna keep getting up and going. But you only ever hear about when they are successful, right? You don't get to see, attempt number 2005 that never made it on the books, right? You never get to see the fact that they are going through a situation until they decide to talk about it. And oftentimes, for our own ego's sake, hello, Steve, welcome, that we don't want to talk about the things that are really difficult and when we haven't figured it out, especially if you are somebody who's maybe more on the ambitious side. If you are driven, committed, and probably a high achiever, that's probably why we are connected in some way. And so when you don't have the answers, when you do have to rely on faith, when you have to be able to say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep doing it anyways, that can feel a little bit scary. right? In your mind, but also how you operate as a human being in the thing that you're called to do. So most of us don't get an opportunity to hear from people until they've figured it out. And that means that when you're going through something, unless you actually get to hear somebody share open and honestly that, hey, just because I got to be this at this point in my career, my life, my journey, my parenting style, or my relationship, if they don't go back and tell you, it was really hard when I was going through it. And the human brain is such that it will almost like immediately help you to forget the things that are really, really hard, because your brain's sole goal is to keep you alive. And so it doesn't want to focus on the things that kept you almost at death's door. Does that make sense? Right? Hello, Audrina. Aaron, sorry, but bye. Goodbye, my friend, because life is too short for you to be on here if you're not supposed to be on here. So I wanted to share a story that I had said yesterday I was going to share. Now, part of this story is not my story to share with you, so I'm going to share the part that belongs to me, right? And the reason why I'm sharing that part is because sometimes we are interacting with other humans, like you and I. Hello, Corey. You and I are interacting right here, right? And so your perspective of this interaction, or any interaction that you have with any other human being here on earth, is your responsibility, and it is your story, and it is yours to tell however you want to tell it, right? And so my perspective and my part of the story is mine to tell. And the reason why this is important is, as we get into this, you'll realize that this is involving one of my kids. And I don't have permission. While it happened for us and to us as a family unit, there's a big piece of this that belongs to her, because it's her story, right? I can only share my perspective that belongs to me as her mom. And so for that, I'm going to go all the way back to before she was born, because I had almost forgotten about this, okay? And the reason why I'm sharing this is because sometimes we forget about the things that tested our metal, like tested the very fabric of who we are. And at the time, in the moments when we have faced the greatest areas of uncertainty or fear or worry, and if you have come through the other side, which, hello, you're here with me right now. So I know that you have already gone through something that has tried you, that has tested you, that has pushed you, and yet you have persevered. And that means that the next time that something happens, that you have already proven to yourself, hopefully, like this, the reason why I'm sharing this story is going to be so that you can reflect back and say, hey, if I did that once, then I could do it again. Now, do I want us to do that again? No, I don't. But the reality is that in life, things are going to happen that are going to test us, that are going to try us, that are going to expand who we are, so that we can keep growing and evolving and becoming a better version of where we were before, because perhaps we're going to gain wisdom and insight and different perspective. Does this make sense? So before I was pregnant with my daughter, who is my second child, so I'd already gone through this once. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I expected it to be very similar to my first child, which was very uneventful. And that was a good thing, right? Like, it's being an uneventful pregnancy means it's smooth sailing. So that's what I expected. And then when we got to the ultrasound, which is normal, right? Everything was fine. And then during one of the routine doctor's visits, my doctor said, we have to send you for a second ultrasound. Now, I immediately knew, because my first pregnancy was uneventful, that this was not normal for me. Now, it may have been normal for somebody else, but for me, this was unusual. I only needed one ultrasound with my first child. Now, to have a second ultrasound for my second child was a little odd. And so we went, right, we got it scheduled. It was fairly quick. So that also alerted me, because as maybe you don't have an awareness of this, but usually the faster they get you in to see somebody, the more urgent it is, the more they strike number one and strike number two, where my spidey senses, my intuition, right? For me, it was my spirit was on high alert. And yet wasn't quite sure what was going on. Now, I was very busy running a household with a toddler, high profile job, and life was very full. So I didn't really have space to really even think of anything or really start to get worried. But something was sparking inside of me. So as we went to the second ultrasound, my husband was there with me, and this ultrasound was not done at the regular ultrasound office. This ultrasound was done at the hospital. Okay, now it was done at our children's hospital, but it was done in a hospital nonetheless. So again, number 3. And I thought, okay, why are we going to the hospital? Now, I still didn't have enough to worry about, right? Like, as in, it wasn't something that was like setting off alarm bells. Corey says 1 to 10. I can't remember if I said something, Corey, around that. So if I apologize. I will allow questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, sorry. So we usually can't give any information because they're the tech and they're not a doctor. So I could see that they were, doing their click, 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 click as they were, stopping and starting and stopping and starting. And it looked like they were looking for something, right? It looked like they were specifically looking for something. Now, the ultrasound tech at the end said, hold on, I'm going to go grab the doctor. And I thought, okay, now I'm worried, because now what is going on? So at that point, I am now past 6 months pregnant. I want to say I was probably close to 7 months pregnant, because my first ultrasound was done around the 20 to 21 week mark. Okay, so about halfway through. So now we're progressing later on in the pregnancy, and the doctor comes in. How did they word it? They basically said that they had very, help me, Holy Spirit. They, based off of what they were seeing, and based off of the specific measurement that they were doing. Now, obviously, the baby inside of me was not very big. Not very big, not yet full term. But they were able to make some measurements that would indicate that there may be a genetic disorder. Now, the particular genetic disorder, if we decided to go ahead with the pregnancy at that point, would mean that there would be a high likelihood that she might not survive. Like, she could be born, but she would not survive. Are we back? We're going through a windstorm, so my Wi-Fi/data might be a little bit off. So we were faced with this huge dilemma. Now, remember, I was well past 20 weeks pregnant at this point, because my first ultrasound was done at 20 weeks. So happened. And this doctor now is informing us, as soon to be parents of another child, that our unborn child is now potentially going to have a genetic disorder that could mean death after being born. And in the face of that, where all I could think about was, what do you mean? So I want you to imagine, and you have to make a hard decision where you don't know if what you're deciding upon is going to end in the outcome that you desire, where you literally have to take the biggest leap of faith of your entire life, and it may impact other people, right? The decision that I was making and that my husband and I were making together in that situation was going to impact not just me as the carrier, right? Not just me as the mother who was having a baby, but my husband, my first child, who was expecting a sibling, the rest of our family, and then obviously my child. And in the face of that, because the doctor was very, I don't want to say cold, but I mean, I can't imagine being a doctor having to tell parents this kind of news, because I think it was a man. He knew the realities of what we were going to face if we decided to move forward. But he also knew the realities of, here's option B, which was you can decide to abort. Now, I think the odds were about 50-50. My husband, his memory says something else. The percentages are not super important, right? Because I think you would imagine that regardless of whether it was 50-50 or 40-60 or 10% and 90%, and maybe it would sway you a little bit, but I can tell you in that moment that the odds did not matter. What I heard in that moment was that my perfect, soon-to-be born baby was no longer potentially going to be perfect. And I don't mean about like perfection. I mean that she would be healthy and whole and be exactly what I was expecting and what I had wished for, prayed for, and hoped for. And as a result, I was left with having to make a decision. And the reality was, we could not go home and sleep on it. We could not take, a day or a week. We literally had to decide almost in that moment. And sometimes we are faced with these almost life and death moments, because that's what I was being faced with. And if I keep deciding in the face of fear, in the face of uncertainty, there was no 100% guarantee that I had made the right decision. And sometimes when we are going through things in life where we are required to really focus on our faith, it requires us to believe before we even know for sure what we are believing for or in. And that's what I want you to know or remember today as a result of our time here, is that when you are faced with something that appears like it is impossible, the Bible says with God, all things are possible. And I remember in that moment almost feeling like I was rolling the dice, like Russian roulette. Do I just keep going forward, knowing that what the doctor had said is I could have this baby, and when the baby would be born, that there was a chance, a high chance, right? 50-50 chance that the baby would be born only to then pass away. And yet there was an opportunity to say, but what if she defies the odds? What if my baby is born and does not pass away? Because right now, it could go either way. And right now, I get to decide what I'm going to do. Am I going to decide that the certainty of we're not going to deal with that and we're just going to try again with a new baby would be the decision, or and make it through and be completely healthy, whole, and perfect, just as we intended, right? Just as God had created her inside of me. And so we're going to fast forward, because when she was born, because at the time I didn't know if it was boy or girl, when she was born, she was perfect, perfectly healthy, nothing wrong. And I remember when we made the decision that we were going to take a chance, that every single day between that second ultrasound that sparked worry, concern, and fear and uncertainty, right? That sensation never left me. That I had to focus on the fact that my goal was to have a happy, healthy, and whole baby that would not just be born, but would actually make it for the rest of her life as that happy, healthy, whole human. And despite that a doctor had told me that there was a very high likelihood, right? Like 50-50, and you might not think that that's very high, but Russian roulette, people play games, but the reality is that if you had a 50-50 chance, most people would be like, no, I'm not taking that shot, right? And yet here I am thinking that's kind of where we are. Do I have the faith to believe that the baby that I want is going to be okay? Or am I going to give in to fear? Am I going to give in to uncertainty? Am I going to give in to worry? Am I going to take the certainty of knowing that I don't want to have to deal with the pain of the baby being born and then passing away because of this identified genetic defect, right? So every single day, I had to hold on to, and here's the lesson. Every single day I had to hold on to the fact that what I desired, what I wanted, and what I had asked for was to have another baby who was going to be perfectly, wonderfully made. That at the time I didn't know boy or girl, that baby was going to be healthy, that the baby was going to be whole, that the supposed genetic defect that they had identified would be gone, right? And I remember praying and asking God to help me because in that moment, the doctors couldn't help me. There was nothing that I could physically do. Now it was literally just left up to the divine forces to be able to help me move through this with grace, with grit, and also with a lot of faith. And that was the very first time that my faith was tested in such a way that I could not clearly articulate to you that, because I couldn't tell you, would I have a baby who was going to be 100% okay? The answer was no, right? The answer, according to the doctors, was we don't know, because they literally did not know. They had identified on an ultrasound that there was a 50-50 chance that she would have a high genetic defect that would cause her to pass as soon as she was born. And so even on paper, the doctors could not say that I was going to be okay, that my baby was going to be okay, that was a huge question mark. And so when we go through things in life, because oftentimes we want a sure thing, we want like a guaranteed thing. And I think sometimes, although we understand how faith works, that we operate faith kind of from the same perspective, right? That like I have the faith for it, but I kind of want a guarantee. I want to know for sure that what it is that I'm asking for, the thing that I'm moving towards, the thing that I have a dream or a hope or a desire, or the thing that I've prayed for is actually going to come. And then we get disappointed when it doesn't come the way that it needs to come. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because you would think that the story just ends miraculously, and it has. But that does not mean that there have not been bumps and bruises along the way. It does not mean that there have been things to challenge my faith and my belief as it relates to my children and their health, their wellness, their well-being, right? And so this is why I share this, is because, and this is where I'm going to dance around a little bit, because part of this story now belongs to her. But I will share this part because somebody needs to hear this, whoever it is. In 2021, my daughter, the same one that was told to me, we think that she has a genetic defect. And if that is true, then when she is born, she might be alive for maybe 14 days. And then there's a high likelihood that she will pass away because of the genetic defect. So you have a decision to make. And now I decided to keep going on. She was born completely healthy, completely whole, nothing wrong with her. And then to fast forward 2021 and to have my brilliantly amazing, vibrant, just outspoken, powerful young woman of a daughter to suddenly fall ill and to not know what the heck was going on. And I was brought to my knees. Now I might get emotional, but I am okay. And if you've been on here with me for any length of time, because I've been coming on daily to do these videos, I've shared little snippets of my own personal journey. I have been healed from multiple chronic illnesses by the grace of God and by the power of my faith, fueling the actions that I needed to take to change my whole self. Despite all of that, in the face of seeing my child now desperately ill, broke me. And I was brought right back to being that pregnant mom with my baby in my belly, being told by a doctor that they had identified a potential genetic defect. That meant if she was born, that she would be born and then die within 7 to 14 days. And she had defied the odds. And in the face of this great uncertainty, she was diagnosed with POTS originally, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And it's not very well known. It's still not very well known, but back in 2021, virtually nobody had heard about it. And so for her to have been early diagnosed with that, which then got downgraded to something different, the reality is that she is a walking, talking, breathing miracle. And if God could do that for me, if not just once, but at least twice and probably more times, but there has been no deficit as a result of these things that we have encountered in our lives. That's not to say that these weren't hard. These were very difficult things to go through, very difficult things, and things that tried and tested my faith, that gave me pause, and which I call God, that bigger than me, because there was no way for me to have gone through both of these scenarios by myself. Obviously, I had my husband alongside of me both times, but I'm talking about the supernatural grace that comes with having faith in something that knows and believes and is aiming for a bigger outcome than what I can imagine on my own. And so if right now you are facing a situation that has caused fear or worry or feels very, very uncertain, and yet you are deciding to pursue, and yet you are deciding to persevere, and yet you have decided to keep going, let me be the first to tell you, congratulations. Let me be the first to tell you that I don't know what the ending needs to look like for you, but even if it doesn't end the way that you think, because I'm going to tell you, and this is why part of this story doesn't belong to me, because obviously it involves my daughter. It involves somebody else. It involves lots of other people, but the part of the testimony that now belongs to her is hers to tell. But from my perspective, the fact that this has happened and has been something that our family has been able to work through has taught me again the power of faith. And that even when we don't know what the outcome is going to look like, that if you can be okay with the worst case scenario, right? Like when I made the decision to continue on to have my baby, that was knowing that there was an equal opportunity, that it could swing either way, that what the doctors had said around, Susan, we think your baby could have a genetic defect. We think that if you decide to go through with this whole pregnancy, that there's a high likelihood that it will end in death. That despite that level of uncertainty, that I still decided that I was going to believe that God would help me, and that even if he didn't, that while it would be terrible, while it would be the worst thing that I could possibly imagine and have to go through, that I would still be okay. And I had to be okay with that decision in order to move forward. Either way. Does this make sense? And so, because this was the fork in the road, this was the decision of, Susan, are you going to keep going with the pregnancy, knowing that that outcome, which you still want, could happen, 50-50 chance, or you decide to create certainty, and that means you don't proceed. And so, by me choosing faith, I had to decide I'm going to choose faith knowing that it's coming with uncertainty, knowing that it's going to come with potential pain and suffering and worries. I'm choosing the path of faith, despite the fact that there is no certainty around what the outcome is going to be. And certainly it's not going to be 100% guaranteed that it is something that I desire, because the odds were very much not in my favor. It was 50-50. So the question to you is, when you are, because it's not a matter of if, this is a matter of when you are faced with a moment of greatest opportunity, right? Because for me, the greatest opportunity was for me to have another baby at that moment. This is the story that I'm sharing, right? And side note, this is not really a story about my baby or my child, although it is. This is part of a testimony that I want to share. But I want you to think about for yourself, when you have an opportunity to have something that you desire, you are going to be tested in your faith. And your faith is not going to be tested because the outcome is guaranteed. Your faith is going to be tested because you're going to have certainty around the outcome. Despite the outcome is going to be the outcome that you desire, that you waited for, that you prayed for, that you hoped for, that you wished for, that you are desiring, that you are intending for, that you are setting goals towards, that despite that you have to be able to say, I believe that I'm going to be okay, no matter what. And even if that outcome is the worst thing that I could possibly think could happen, and it would be devastating, that despite that, my faith is going to allow me to keep moving forward. That despite that, my faith is the thing that's going to be like a life raft, so that even in the face of more and more and more and more uncertainty, that I am still going to cling to that, knowing that that possibility, no matter how small it is, of the thing that I want to happen, it's still possible, that you're going to hold on to that. The Bible says that we only need faith the size of a mustard seed to move mountains. And that when we ask for something and we believe that we will have it, that we can have it. And yet I know that there are plenty of people out there, maybe that's you right now, that are saying, but Susan, I believe and I have prayed and I have wished for and I have done the things that I need to do, and yet I didn't get it. Why? Because sometimes we're not ready to receive the thing that we actually are desiring. If that's you, you need to go and watch my video where I'm talking about, are you ready to receive your next level vision? Because that's talking about how do we prepare to receive the things. Today's video is really to help you, that because I think sometimes we think, oh, I have faith, I take the leap of faith, and then it all works out hunky-dory. And I'm here to tell you, no, it doesn't always work out that way, because for at least 2-3 long months between the time that I got this diagnosis for an unborn child who is still in my belly, and the doctors looked me in the eye and said, you have a choice to make. You can either do this, which is create certainty, which means no baby today, right? And you don't have to deal with the heartache of, you don't know if they're going to be born. And then 7 to 14 days after the baby's born. Every single day, right? Every single day I had to meaning have now inserted a current work hard to this point to have my second child inside of me, only to have, when there are lots of parents out there that unfortunately do have those situations. I can't speak to that specifically, but I'm sharing my personal experience because sometimes we think that when somebody takes a leap of faith, it's done. You take the leap and it's like, woo, it all happened and la, so great. And I'm telling you, that's not how it happened for me. The outcome was great, but then it's been, life is life. Every single step of the way, every single day, I had to remind myself, am I going to choose to be afraid? And I'm not telling you this was easy. It was hard. It was hard because it was still in the back of my mind. And I had to drown fire and to basically build myself up in faith to believe that my baby would be fine. And those days were long. Those nights were longer. There were lots of tears along the way. And sometimes the journey of faith looks like that. It is hard fought. It is not an easy, simple road a lot of the times, especially for things that we deeply desire, especially for things that are part of what we are called to do. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful, right? I give all thanks and praise to the Lord for helping me. But part that even if the worst outcome happened, I would still be okay. It would still be okay. Our marriage would still be okay. That it's not what I desired, but we would figure it out. We would still be able to move forward. And I didn't know how that would look, but I knew that I would have to make sure that I was okay no matter what, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do what was necessary to keep going, despite the fact that those doctors had told me what they told me, right? And that goes the same for when in 2021 we were faced with huge health challenges and not knowing if my child was going to be okay, not knowing, because I'm going to tell you, when you see a 12-year-old falling into walls, not able to walk, losing more than 10% of their body weight almost overnight, not being able to eat properly, not being able to sleep properly, not being able to think properly, not being able to go to school or to play with her friends, and being very dull and lifeless, walking zombie, it is alarming. And so to walk through that every single day has been and will continue to be a walk of faith. And I can't share all of the pieces because it's no longer all of my story to tell. But my perspective as a mom is that when you walk faith in the face of something where you can't control the outcome, especially when there are other people involved and you can't control other people directly, I don't care who you think you are or how old you are and how old the people are around you. The reality is we can influence and we can help and we can guide and steward, but we're not in control of anybody else around us. You might think you are, but you're not. And that by itself is already scary or worrisome or increases the level of anxiety and uncertainty. And so when and I'm hoping that this is helpful for somebody on here, when you are challenged and face the things that make you the most uncomfortable because they have the most uncertainty, like you just don't know what the outcome is going to be, the action step that I want you to take is this. Will you be okay no matter what? That's the question you need to answer for yourself. Will I be okay no matter what? Whatever it is that you're moving forward in, whatever it is that you have faith for, that regardless of whether or not you get the outcome that you desire, will you be okay? Chances are the answer is going to be yes. But can you reconcile yourself to that now as you keep taking moves of faith? Because that will make it much easier for you to keep holding the line, to keep moving forward with faith and not giving in to fear, because it is such a slippery slope. And it is very, very easy when you are faced with a high level of uncertainty and things that don't look like they're going your way. It is very, very easy to start slipping backwards and start getting fearful and start worrying and rising up in doubt and being frustrated because it's not working out the way that you desire, no matter what happens. Because if your answer can be yes, and sometimes it's just a whisper, like, yes, Susan, I think I can, right? Just like that book, I Think I Can, the little train that thought it could. That if you can keep saying, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, eventually you're up the mountain. And sometimes it takes you pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and pulling up on your panties every day and being like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Even when you think that you can't do it, that is going to be you gritting your teeth, right? Because I think sometimes people make it sound like, oh, I took the leap of faith and I flew. Like I just flew. There are lots of times where I encounter that. Hello, Nicole. But there are plenty of times where that's not the case, right? That's plenty of times where that's not the case. And so I'm sharing this here. Hello, David. Keep a positive attitude. You too, dude. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to come on here, number one, to say Merry Christmas, which I started at the very beginning. And if you happen to pop on here later, Merry Christmas to you. This will be up. I'm doing a challenge to myself every day, going live here on YouTube for at least 30 days, partly because it helps me to help you and it helps me to help me because it's uncomfortable. And it requires me to take a leap of faith, to keep talking about things that maybe I don't know if people want to hear from me about, but I'm being led and challenging myself to talk about. Nicole, hubby fell on the ice and broke his arm. Oh, I'm so sorry. Health Zen, I'm from Canada. Where are you from? So you're going to want to go back and watch the replay on this one. Maybe I should have done a warning because it may be a trauma trigger, but I just always have faith and trust that whoever needs to see the video, you're going to see the video. And if you have seen the video or you've stumbled upon the video, that there's probably a reason why you needed to watch the video. And if you were just curious and you're like, gonna do whatever you need to do and you're immediately turned off, then I bless and release you, because life is too short for you to spend any amount of time, including the 3 or 4 seconds that you've been on here, doing something that you don't enjoy. Go and find something that you enjoy. Even if it's not something that I would enjoy, I desire that for you. Make sense? Because I think sometimes people think that they have all the time in the world. We don't. We don't know when is our final step, right? And so I want your moves on earth to always be things that bring you joy, light, and peace with the love of God, hopefully. But if you don't know who God is, then hopefully my love for you, platonic, because I'm married, but that I am going to be able to say, you know what, your life is precious. You go out and do what you need to do, because there's only one of you. And you don't need to be on this if you don't want to be on this. Does that make sense? Right? Nicole Baker, are you Nicole from Kamloops? Holy Spirit has been telling me to have faith. Yes. Right? What's the best moments in your life? That's a great question. I would love to know what the best moments in your life are. The best moments in my life have always been surrounded by love. And so they look different. So I can't really pinpoint it to one singular moment, but what I can say is the best memories that I have, the best moments that stand out for me are things where actually have been some of the most difficult. When I got married, is probably the first one that kind of stands out in my mind. And I know that for some people, it's like their accomplishments, like winning awards and all that stuff. Those were important too. But I will say for me, although my husband and I were together like 6 years before he actually got married, I vividly remember that marriage, the ceremony of getting married was when I actually realized I am joining a new family. Like me and my husband, we are didn't grow up super emotional. Maybe it's the Asian in me, but I remember crying. And I got all of my makeup done. And I remember thinking, I don't have on waterproof mascara. I can't keep crying because I'm going to ruin my makeup, and I don't have any photos done because the photos were going to be done. Not cry as well. And to me, that really stands out. I mean, stood out as best moments are the ones where it's been surrounded. I don't know if I should get married because I don't want to leave my family, right? Because the actual like formality of now being joined with this man in holy matrimony and two are becoming one suddenly got very, very heightened in that moment. And the emotional recognition of that was very overwhelming for me. But that's a great question. Thank you for asking it, Health Sun. Nicole, yes, Kamloops. Oh, amazing. You found me from over on Instagram. I've been thinking of you. Health Zen, how to find out my life purpose. Health Zen, I did a whole video yesterday about purpose. I want you to go and watch that video because I think it will help you. Somebody else was on a video a couple of days ago, Mehmet, and had asked, how do you define purpose? And so I did a whole video just on that topic that I think might be helpful. So rather than me, giving you a short, very like succinct blurb, go and watch that. And I would love to know if you find it helpful, or if you have more questions from watching that, feel free to add it in the comments and I will make sure that I answer if I can for you, okay? Nicole, God is doing a new work in you. In me? God is always doing a new work in all of us. So I am going to end it unless there's any more questions that I can answer. And again, as always, if you join me live, I always try to reserve some time at the end. Again, it's going to depend on #real life because I am living a real life with real humans, which include my family, and that's my first priority. So if God tells me I got to get off, or if my family comes to interrupt me, which sometimes happens, then I must go. But I try to reserve time at the end of each video when I'm going live in order to answer questions. Sometimes these questions become suggestions for future content because the questions are very impactful. Not to say that they're not all impactful, but they may require deeper conversation. And I like pulling those out and using them just like Health Zen. You're asked around how to find my life purpose. Somebody asked that, and so I answered that on a separate video. If you have another question when you're watching that I think might be better served as a separate video, then I will absolutely come on if it makes sense for me to do so, okay? Your countenance has changed. Thank you. I know, the Bible says that we are made new every day, right? That's what the Bible says. And so, Nicole, I will be praying for your husband as well and his broken arm, that it will be miraculously healed and put back together. So again, if you're brand new to me, my name is Susan McVeigh. I am a married mom of two and a business sales and wealth strategist. You can find out more information about me in the channel description or in the description box of this one as well. I finished a live workshop, which was called Vision, all about vision. And for the holiday season, my gift to you, I'm going to leave the price at $33. If you want to grab that, feel free to do so. You're going to get some bonuses that wouldn't otherwise be included. And normally the bonuses alone are $97. The price of this workshop is going to go up to $97. And the big thing that I can tell you about this vision workshop is it will give you clarity and insight on what it is that you actually are wanting to do and accomplish. And if you have struggled to articulate what it is that you are on the earth to do, but more importantly, what that looks like, so that you can get people behind your vision and your movement in a way that you can actually get excited about it, then that's the workshop for you. Yeah. So, and if you have any questions on it, feel free to add it below. Okay. So we will be back tomorrow. Every day we're going live. If there are suggestions, comments for future topics, put it down below and I will absolutely consider it. I can't guarantee that I will talk about it because it's going to depend. It's going to depend on what you suggest. But if it's in the realm of business, entrepreneurship, sales, money, faith, and even if you ask me about like family stuff, if it makes sense and if I feel like I have something that I can help you with and I can serve you with and that would add value to you, then I will absolutely consider that for an upcoming topic. So with that, make sure that you occasionally on Instagram, YouTube is going to be my main platform because that's what God said. And so make sure that you do follow, like, subscribe if you want to stay connected on this particular platform. And otherwise, I'm going to sign off and wish you all the very best tonight and all nights moving forward. I wish you all a very, very blessed and Merry Christmas. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, I wish you the best of the holiday season as we get closer and closer to the end of this year. So with that, bless you, and we will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.